All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Bros Who Close.
Boom.
Boom, boom, boom.
Boom. There we go.
We're nailing this down.
This is pretty efficient.
Instead of having to go and do this, we just kind of wave it.
I'm liking this setup.
Yeah, it's a pretty good setup. So today we've got...
Chloe's like, what did I sign up for?
What the fuck am I doing here? So
Shots.
we introduce our guest today. Today we've got Chloe Tudor, who's happens to be a co-founder of a company called For Health's Sake. It's a health and wellness clinic based out of Toronto, Canada, and also happens to be my fiance. Welcome, babe.
Thank you.
Oh, also, we've got a guest number 2, which is Olive.
I think Olive's been in our podcast before.
She's making her second appearance. So technically, we've had a guest before.
Yes,
but
we
not a
have.
formal guest.
No.
Welcome. Welcome to the podcast, Chloe.
Honestly, I'm actually really excited to do this with you guys, not just because you're my fiance and your family, but I was thinking about how different our two industries are and how this is going to bridge a conversation that isn't really common with sales. Because at first I was a little bit I had a negative critic in my head being like, oh, you guys are having me on because I'm family. And then I was like, no, there's probably a large audience of you guys have that are mostly real estate that having a healthcare perspective I think could actually bring an upper hand to their
I wanted to have you for mainly because of the success you've had. And, one of the things we're going to talk about in this podcast is, we're talking about this with our other guest, irrespective of the industry you're in, sales plays such a vital role in the growth of the business in every practice, whether it's growing, whether it's hiring, whether it's negotiating terms with your employees, which I am aware of because I see it every day, how you talk to your employees and how you're negotiating deals. People don't see that side of you when you're posting on social media on your For Health's Sake on the website, right?
I find it so funny you say negotiating deals. That is a term we would never use in healthcare, but it's true.
But one of the things, so true, you do, right? I remember when I was in Dubai, I guess we're getting right into it, So I was in Dubai recently.
I haven't had this. This is intriguing to me.
Brand new information to Saurabh. I was in Dubai, and then Chloe's texting me. She was negotiating with her landlord about something, right? We don't have to get into specifics, but you were negotiating, and you're like, "Oh my God, babe!" She's like, "This is what he's come back with," and I'm like, "Yeah, keep negotiating." And then you kept going, and then you got to a place that was a better outcome than you'd anticipated.
Yeah.
Right. And so you negotiate deals all the time.
Yeah. Not with clients usually, but it's a different term for that.
But we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about
What's
that.
the term in healthcare to negotiate?
Instead of selling, you think of it as serving.
But
right?
isn't it the same thing? Selling is serving.
Yeah.
Right?
It is. And I also feel like even in real estate, I think my journey now or our journey now is has become very different, right? Now we portray ourselves as, we are your consultant, right? So we are truly serving our clients as well. But maybe we don't use that word as often, but that's what we're truly doing.
You're an advisor, you're a consultant, you're in the healthcare space, right? So maybe let's dive into that. So co-founded For Health's Sake with your business partner, Katie, who I know very well. I'd love to have her on here one day as well. Talk to us about, I kind of know the story, but tell Saurabh and everyone else how you got started and your background.
Yeah.
Okay. What are the important parts? I think a lot of people, you work for companies that aren't fully representing you, and I just felt like it wasn't authentic to who I was. So
In what way?
In many ways. I felt like a lot of the healthcare, the clinics are a lot about the assembly line of care. They're about kind of cookie cutter spots, not really vibey, and it just didn't feel authentic to me. I didn't feel like there was community built. I just couldn't find a space that really felt like, oh yeah, this is my vibe. So we created it, and that's kind of how it started. It just was action oriented. Just went for it.
How long did you have this idea in your head of starting this business before you actually said, I'm doing it?
Oh, not long. I'm as soon as I think of things, I just do it.
Yeah, I have some stories of Chloe that I can keep talking about. She makes decisions so fast, and it's pretty scary, but in a good way. right? Like
Sometimes.
the first car that you bought.
I know,
you took
I know.
You're like, I'm buying a car today. I'm like, we should probably shop. She's like, I'm buying a car today.
I know.
That's great. So how far do you go back? So tell us. I mean, I know the background. You're from Nova Scotia, so maybe tell us about the upbringing. What got you to a point where, I'm sure you took it in university and then you started working. So take us through that journey.
Yeah, so I do think, so I grew up in a very small town in Nova Scotia called Lockport, and there was 900 people on the island. And I feel like that tight-knit community made it always, like sales to me became natural.
Yeah.
Like I didn't think of it as pitching, or it was just like you're sharing knowledge, you're always genuine. 100% of the time you need to be genuine or else you're not going to, do well. So it's about helping friends and family to know what's going to help them. So I feel like the community where I grew up plays a big role in why it becomes so natural to me to just sell and share knowledge. And I do wonder if that's a difference with Toronto. It's just like there's less of that community, so people often like mistrust or wonder like, what's their angle? And it doesn't cross my mind because I'm just like, well, obviously I'm being honest, like, So I do think community plays a big role in the business and what we want clients to feel when they walk in. It's like our clinic is set up as like a living room. It's like you're coming into home, and that's what I want people to feel. Same with the way that they're remembered and the connections we make.
Yeah, and I remember going to I've taken a lot of physio over the years and massages. I think I remember going when I first tore my ACL. This was years ago. I remember going to a clinic. It was like a hospital, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I remember going to Chloe's clinic.
Like you're in a Zen garden.
Yeah, it was like
there for a meditation excursion.
Yeah, I was like, I'm in a yoga studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not particularly yoga studio, but it was just very zen. I think it was just very calming. It was very inviting. I think that's the right word.
How much of that goes back to your background of Nova Scotia and that community and growing up?
I mean, nature. It's like we were surrounded in nature, obviously, in Nova Scotia. So in Toronto, it's like, how do you make people feel like, that's why we have plants everywhere. And it's just, nature is such a big part of healing. So we just kind of wanted to bring that vibe in.
So right now you've got 2 clinics, right? And your first franchise, that just opened up actually just down the street from us. So what was your
Kingsway, by the way?
Sorry,
Yeah, no, I just said shout out Kingsway.
Your first one was on Queen Street. That's where you opened up.
Downtown, yep.
Yeah.
And then you opened up the one in Leslieville. That was your second location. And then you franchised it out.
Yeah.
So why franchise? Like, why did you go that route?
So that came very organically. Basically, over the years, Katie and I had therapists of ours ask if they could be a part of our company. And we were saying no to people just because the energy involved of like opening another space with somebody or the money too. And even just thinking about another business partner, it's like Katie and I have a really good vibe. So thinking of adding that in, it's just a risk, right? So we were saying no. And then one day I was like, why are we turning down people that we know would be reflecting what we value? And we could help more communities. So Norman happened to ask us around that time where I was sort of reflecting on that. So that's when the light bulbs went off and franchising was an idea. And then we had to really look into, does it make sense for somebody to open a For Health's Sake clinic or open their own? And like, if it doesn't make sense, we're not going to pitch it, right? And after discovering and finding all the pros and cons, I was like, oh my gosh, it does make sense. If you love the brand, I think it is a great avenue for people. And that's kind of how we started. Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I appreciate about your model, call it whatever you want, the story that you're trying to always give out is you really believe in what you're putting out there. Both your clinics, the new clinic now on the Kingsway. I remember at home when you're coming up with the pitch, it wasn't like, something that is just taken from other places and put together. It was very thought out. It was very much you. And then, going back to what you were saying earlier, it doesn't feel like selling is because the best salespeople are people who don't feel like they're selling. They're just really believe in what they do, and then they transfer that over to other people, and it naturally comes across as something that they want to buy or buy into, right?
Yeah.
Has that always been natural for you growing up?
I feel so when I think about the pitch with Normand, it was so funny because this is, I think, a really important part. When you have relationships built in that history, of them understanding how you work in all these different environments and building that trust, we were sort of pitching because we were very like passionate about why we felt like it makes sense. And Normand, I think I even remember him being like, you guys don't need to pitch me. Like, I'm sold. Like, and I do think that that's a really powerful thing when you can have those relationships built. That's why relationships are so important. It's like when you guys, I remember we were only dating for a few months and you were, talking about the pre-con, and I had a meeting with you both, and I remember you guys were kind of doing that pitch of trying to sell me, and I said the same thing. I was like, you guys, I'm sold, like, because I trusted you, and I knew that it was, so I guess it's just easy when you have that.
Yeah. That passion sort of translates over. Yeah.
Yeah, I think relationship is very important to, and whether it be anyone, whether it be with your franchisee or with your clients,
Yeah.
And that's why I'm sure that you guys get repeat clients all the time.
Yeah.
And the clients keep coming back to you because now you've built that relationship, you've built that trust with those people, and they don't need to be sold every time. They know that they come in, they're gonna get great service, they're gonna get great care.
Yeah.
Right. So what were some of the, as a business entrepreneur, and this is what this podcast is about, it's just entrepreneurship. So what were some of your biggest challenges when you kind of first started out? When you're starting out the For Health's Sake brand, like, how does one even go about starting a health clinic? Right? Like, I think, like, for me, it's, like, I'll give you an example. It was easier because, you come in, you already had a broker set up.
Yeah.
You come in, you open your laptop, you start making calls. There's always some sort of support. Even though you got to go in and get your own business, but there was always some support. But on the flip side, you're now starting a business from scratch.
Brick and mortar. Yeah. It's like it's a clinic, right?
Yeah.
We could work from home, but you had to get all that set up. But what were some of the challenges you faced early on?
Honestly, there are so many challenges, and like every day would be just something new. I think when I look back, we're so different than when we started. But I think the key is you just start and then you iron it out later. And I think with Katie and I, we both worked in downtown Toronto for years. Katie, like a decade, I think. So when we opened our clinic, we had so many loyal clients just waiting to come. So we already had a natural influx of clients, right? So it built quick because of that, and because, again, they knew us. So they trusted us when we said, okay, you need to see chiro for your shoulder. And then it just kind of grew that way. But there's a million challenges every day. Managing is always a big one. You got to learn personalities, and that's something that I actually really enjoy learning about. Always reading books, and yeah.
How do you overcome these challenges that you're facing, like consistently, that you face every day? What's the key to really face them head on?
I get way less stressed than what I used to. Before, it would impact my day. Now it's just like, what's the next fire? Like, what's next? Like, I'm ready for it. And it really doesn't make me think, like, it doesn't cause what it used to cause. I would say the biggest thing in terms of like management, it's have the conversation right away. As soon as you see something, it's like, hey, Sid, I want to talk to you about this. Like, what happened here? Let's talk. And you bite it in the butt right away, because it's a lot of people I found, like managers I used to work with, they wait too long, and then it becomes a whole different conversation. It's like the quicker you are and the more consistent you are is just allowing the whole team to just feel at ease, because they're like, okay, this is what we expect, and like they're on top of stuff,
I mean, you started the clinic back in 2017.
2018,
and now it's 2025, so you've had it for about 7 years.
Yeah.
And you guys have grown very quickly. Now you guys have grown from, and I see that you have a huge following in terms of if you go to Google and you Google For Health's Sake, like it's like a gazillion amount of 5-star ratings, right?
Yeah.
So what were some of the strategies that helped you guys grow, you feel, over the years, that you went from having no clients the day when you started in 2018
Yeah.
to being one of the highest rated health clinics in Toronto?
One of our unique strategies, which a lot of people don't have the opportunity to do, I guess, depending on your industry, but we were in corporate. So I don't know if you even knew that, but like we would go into different offices in downtown and we'd do on-site massage there, and people would learn about us. And it was just a very easy way to build, because we were in Kijiji, Facebook, Entertainment One, Vice Media, all these really cool companies right around our clinic. They'd hear our name and then they'd follow us later. So it was just like free advertising. And then COVID hit, and then the whole thing was lost. And then we had to find a whole new way of marketing our clinic, which is when we worked with like Google Ads and SEOs, and then that's been helping us.
So let's talk about that. COVID, right? So COVID hits 2020.
Yeah.
And then you guys are in operation now 2 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So what does that do to you immediately, to your mindset, where everyone's like, everything shuts down and you have a brick and mortar place, you have employees, you have overhead.
Yeah.
What's going through your mind?
Definitely panic, but I was more panicked for our team because I was like, you're responsible for people's salaries. You're responsible for them getting by. So I immediately just felt for others. I wasn't even thinking about the fact that we're fucked. And I remember reaching out to a few people that I knew like didn't really have help from family and like, yeah, asking like, do you need help? Like, can we cover you for the, like, so that was like the immediate piece. But Katie and I, we did weekly meetings with the team because I'm sure a lot of people were freaking out. So we always met, we brainstormed on ways to just stay connected. And then we started virtual psychotherapy. And this is an opportunity that has changed. COVID changed this game. Virtual therapy is one of our biggest services now still. And it never was a thing pre-COVID. It opened up a whole new service, like a whole new revenue. And that is one thing I'm grateful for COVID.
Yeah, one of the things we talk about constantly is being able to adapt and being able to pivot, right? And so sounds like one of the things that pivotal moments for you was getting into psychotherapy. Talk about that whole side of the space that you have.
Yeah, so everybody knows mental health and physical health are so correlated, and the mind impacts the body. So when we thought of adding a psychotherapist to our team, we were like, oh my God, it's so obvious now. Why didn't we have this? And we didn't have it because when you look around all the other clinics, not very many clinics, if any, really were having it at the time. Right. And it's funny now because even I said to Katie, I'm like, watch, you're going to see clinics now do this because it wasn't a thing. And then sure enough, you're seeing some of those bigger names start doing it. And it's now more common. But I'm so glad that we have that because we attract a very unique clientele. I would say people with trauma and chronic pain and very complicated issues. And this is what true holistic care is about. Because if you have trauma, which most people do, there's pain patterns in your brain that change. And if you're not working on those while you're working on the pain areas, you're just stalling your healing. So we've been noticing quicker and more efficient recovery with clients.
Right.
What? And I think so. Were you allowed to see clients during that time, like during COVID? Was physiotherapy a thing at that point? Or could you still do massages? Was that an essential service?
No. There were a couple essential services. Chiro was essential, so our chiro was working, and she was really busy because I was the only thing available. So that was great for her. Physiotherapy, it was very like. It had to be like certain conditions that were deemed urgent or, but they did virtual as well. And a lot of people did virtual physio, which is cool. And people still do virtual physio.
That's pretty cool.
No idea.
And then psychotherapy was virtual. So those were the only three that we had kind of going.
Right.
Okay,
Interesting.
And you know, it's interesting because, I mean, we use the virtual services now, and it's so convenient.
Yeah.
It's not even funny. I'm just sitting in my living room. Like, I don't need to drive 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or, to get to a place and then, it's the same thing on the way back. So I think it's a great service. It's a great add-on, I guess. And it makes, it's very convenient, I should say.
Yeah.
So it totally made sense. So I could totally see why.
It makes care more accessible, right?
Very much
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk about, just sticking to the theme of this podcast is sales and entrepreneurship, but sales specifically with the healthcare industry that you're a part of, right? People, like normal people, don't relate the two, like sales and health. Like, how does that fit in? You being an entrepreneur and having multiple clinics, being in this space, how important is sales to be a part of your industry and space? How important has it been for you?
I mean, you can't do any business without sales, right? But it's interesting because healthcare professionals go into that industry because they want to help people. And it's kind of this internal conflict that you have when you've done all that studying and you have all this knowledge and you know how to help somebody, and then you get to your first client and you realize, first of all, you can't help a client in one session. So you have to have commitment from your client in order to actually create an impact. And you have to be able to articulate why it's important for them to come back and how often they should come back. And if you have this internal dialogue of, I don't want to be salesy and I don't want to be pushy, you just end up not helping people. So then it's like, why did you go to school for so long if you're just not going to help people then? So you have to get over that.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think people, and it doesn't have to be healthcare, but because you can speak of your industry and employees that you have, why do you think people, the therapists, feel, are afraid of selling?
Because it goes against what you think of with health. It just, they're like opposing thoughts in a way. And I do think that's where the frame, like the mindset changing from selling to serving, that's what I do. I don't think I'm selling, I'm serving. Because honestly, if you're not telling your client when to come back, you're doing them a disservice. And you're just not helping people. You just wasted their money on an initial appointment.
So true.
So it's a switch, but I think it's a repetitive conversation I have over and over again with my team. I'm sure you hear me all the time. And it's a shame because it's just like, oh, you think you're helping them, but you're hindering their progress.
Yeah, it goes back to belief, right? Like, do you believe this client would benefit from having multiple sessions with you? And if you do, if you truly believe that, it's your obligation to like tell them, I need to see you at least 4 times. I'll give you an example. I went to go see Mark the other day at Norman's clinic for osteo. And immediately he was like, I need to see you 4 times. And I love that. He's like, let's book it in.
Yeah.
But, he gave me the option, but I liked his approach. And so immediately I was like, let's book in. Had he not asked me, I wouldn't have booked in. Right.
Yeah.
But he believed that I needed it to get better care.
Yeah.
And that was from his belief that this is what's going to ultimately cure and help you.
Yeah, and I think belief is very important, right? Like if you, depending, it doesn't matter who you're serving. If you truly believe that you're doing them a service by again, from the perspective of real estate, I truly believe, like any listing presentation that we go to or any buyer that we intake, whatever have you, I truly believe our team is the best person to serve them. So because I have that belief, I have that conviction, it makes the conversations much easier.
Yeah.
That, because, and they feel it.
And
like
they feel it. That's important. Yeah.
Exactly, right? The person on the other end truly feels that, like, no, like she's right. Like, I need to do these sessions. Like, I need to at least see her 5 times. Like, or 6 times or whatever amount of times, right? So I truly feel that it goes hand in hand.
So how can someone overcome that, fear, like a therapist or anybody, to and really push for the care that the patient or the person actually needs?
I think it's just reframing the way you think. I know that like we're hiring coaching around it, so that's something that we're investing in now, which I think the other issue is when it comes from me and Katie, it's like whenever it comes from the leaders, they just don't take it, people don't take it the same, and the same message could be delivered by somebody else and then a light bulb goes off. So I almost think it's just worth hiring somebody to have it come from somebody else so that they just hear it differently and know that it's not coming from money, it's not coming from the growth of the business, although of course it will happen when they succeed with what they're doing and you need to survive as a business. Of course that's part of it, but the real purpose is we want to help people. What are we doing? Like, we don't just want to be a clinic that people can come to once for a massage and then that's it. We want to be known to be like, they fixed my shoulder.
Yeah.
You talked about hiring a coach recently, and I remember when you hired this person, and I know that, we talk about this all the time, is one of the common denominators for a lot of successful entrepreneurs is people's ability to invest in themselves through hiring others, through hiring services. How important has that been as part of your business?
I mean, we just started last week, but like already we're making a change tomorrow that our mentor said in our first session that I was like, why did we not think of this? This is huge. And it's, I don't know if I should share it. I don't even know if it's important, but
Share
it.
Go ahead. Share it.
It's right now when people book, you can book online through Jane, as you know, our booking system, but you can also cancel. So when we allowed clients the ability to move their own appointments, they internalize it as, okay, it's not really important. I can take care of my own schedule, and they'll just move things on their own and not follow treatment plans. So giving them too much flexibility was not letting us create impact. So by creating a little friction, by making them have to call us to cancel, we can then rebook them right away and make sure they don't fall off a plan. And I was like, obviously this is going to be better for everyone.
And we actually put a dollar figure on this when we talked about yesterday, because you worked out the numbers to see how many cancellations you got last year, and we determined even if it was cut down by half, that's 50, something crazy, a big number that you can retain.
Yeah.
And that alone, that little switch alone would
for her
have paid
coaching.
for the coaching
I know.
and then some, right? We
Yeah.
talk about this all the time when we go to conferences. You know,
Yeah.
people are like, "Why are you guys going to conferences?" We're like, "We're going there because we want a nugget.
Yeah.
we want
But
a
one
fucking nugget.
That's
No one
true.
knows.
We want to implement it. And
Yeah.
even if you did nothing with this coach moving forward, if you implemented that, I
Yeah,
guarantee you'll see
it's-
results.
he's paid for his ways, right? There's a lot of noise around every industry, right? I think every industry has a lot of competition. Us as agents, we have a lot of competition. Healthcare clinics too, of course. There's a lot. There's just on Bloor Street. There's
Yeah.
if you just start
Yeah.
walking, there's a lot of them. So how do you differentiate yourself from competitors? How does For Health's Sake stand out really and from the other competition that's out there?
So I don't think of it as competition because I do think that you attract your tribe, right? So right now, I do think we're fitting a mold that isn't really there yet. And that is about, the environment of the space that you're in. We believe environment plays a role in healing, and a lot of clinics are not set up for that. There's a cool factor to it. But more importantly, the care is top quality. Like no matter who you get, it's going to be consistent care. Where if you choose another space like a spa, it's a beautiful environment, but often the quality isn't kept. So we're trying to be this in-between ground that doesn't really exist too much in Toronto. So I think that's a way that we've differentiated ourselves.
Great.
Yeah.
And I could see that, right? Like I've gone to the space. I haven't gone to For Health's Sake Kingsway yet. I mean, I've seen it kind of from the outside. I'm hoping I'll
Bro,
go
it's down the
tomorrow.
street. Just walk there now.
I know.
I
I
literally
know.
sent you
book
the
it.
booking link
I
yesterday.
did. I'm going to book for tomorrow. I'm going right after
You got to
this.
book for him like you do for me. Just put him in the calendar.
I know. But this is actually a good point. It's when you know somebody and you trust. I heard you had back pain.
Yeah,
I literally
she sends me the link.
I literally go, yo, and I send the link. I'm like, book something. And because when you know somebody and you know that I would never
Yeah.
then it's like, I don't need to pitch you on it. And sometimes it's so exhausting with the new clients and I get it. They don't know me, but it's just like, just trust me. I'm not going to, yeah.
And I just laughed, right? Because I knew I was like, it was great because it's coming from you. And then I told you about it. And then
Yeah.
you just messaged me like, yo, book this. And
Yeah.
it was great. So I love that. And for me especially, like I think a lot of people have this, and we talked about this today, right? I think a lot of people have this negative connotation of sales and salespeople and sales in general. And, have a very different mindset. I don't really look at it that way. I don't really look at sales. And I like being pitched to. And because I truly feel that, if you're genuine about what you're trying to accomplish or what you're trying to do with that person, like it really comes across.
Yes.
Right? So you can, and if somebody's out there really as a money grab, that'll come across very easily. Like you could just having one conversation with that person, you'd be like, nah.
Or you
I'm
sell
good.
somebody the wrong thing and then you've burned the bridge and then now they're no longer, you don't retain that client.
Exactly.
Yeah. And sorry, I was just going to add that I think that that's something that isn't talked about enough. I'm actually don't know if you guys will agree with me on this, but I think with sales, you do not want to be convincing. So you don't want to get to a point where you're making the client feel pressured.
Right.
You want to do that discovery, find out what their goals are, find out if you can help them, articulate why you believe you can help them, and allow them to naturally get there of like, yeah, I want to do this. It's almost like with or without you energy, right? When you sound too desperate, they feel that.
Oh,
Yeah.
I totally agree. Yeah,
100%.
100%. And it happens, right? I do believe at some point, I mean, in our business is very different because the services is not, $100, $150 service. The commitment is not very big, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes to real estate, it's a big commitment.
Yeah.
So, and I've had that over the years where, we take the same approach, but at some point, you just need a little push.
You do need to push. I was going to say, I agree with you for the most part, but there's context matters, right? Great point. Like in real estate, people are making big decisions. They're sold on it, completely sold on it. But sometimes you need to push them a little bit because they need that push.
Yeah.
Not everyone's the same kind of decision maker, right?
Yeah.
Some people need that push and they're relying on you for that push. And you have to say, let's go ahead. Let's close this deal. Let's go ahead. I'm going to send you the DocuSign. Let's go put an offer, right? You need that because they need that push. Because again, we're talking about your life savings, right? And even though they know that's the right decision, they need that push from somebody.
Yeah, and it happened like I did a deal yesterday, and my client said, "This is my bottom line. I'm not going. Like that's it. Like don't come to me after. Like don't ask me for another penny or whatever have you." And I've been working on this deal for probably like a good part of like 4 days, And in the end, and even though I had a direction saying like, hey, don't bring me any offers that is below this amount, I felt like I pushed that buyer and that agent to the best that I could.
Yeah.
And they'd given me, everything that we wanted except for, we were like $2,500 apart in price. And I called my client and I said, listen, we've got everything you wanted. And he's like, right away, he was just like, do not tell me like, and he just started like, do not tell me like, I'm not giving $1 off. And I said, listen, we need to give $2,500 off. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. That's what needs to happen. And that we need to move on to the next deal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think at some point we need to start pushing. But again, context definitely matters.
Yeah.
In some places, you just have to show the bigger picture or the something that they're not realizing in the moment, because people can get emotional. And it's your job, like it's our job as advisors to handle emotions. We do a lot of hand-holding and a lot of wearing different hats.
Yeah.
So definitely, but I think, yes, at the core, it's about not convincing. It's about asking the right questions and bringing the people to the conclusion that this is the right thing to do. But then the close is a little bit different, because there you do have to push a little bit.
Yeah. And again, though, it depends on your intent. Your intent has to be
100%,
genuine,
100%.
and then that works.
Yeah. Absolutely. The trust has to be there, right? As a therapist.
You talked about attracting your own tribe. So how do you attract? And this is just as an entrepreneur, how do you attract and then retain that tribe?
So the tribe that I think For Health's Sake attracts is the holistic wellness group of people. And it's people that really want to improve their health, mental and physical. And they are on that self-growth mindset. So clients, when they come in and they just want a massage every month, to be honest, they're my worst clients. Like, I just there's so much more that could help them. And like, even with you guys, sometimes I'm like, can you please go to osteo? Like,
you switched me to that recently, and I'm not trying to convince this guy.
It was I'm already convinced. You already sent the link yesterday. You don't have to convince me.
So see, he's the kind of guy you got to push. This is what I mean.
Yeah.
You got to push, because context matters, right? And you got to be like, book. Did you book it? Yes or no? Because everyone's different, right?
Totally.
But had you booked it for me yesterday, Chloe, I would have been gone today probably.
Well, I actually just checked it. I was like, he didn't book it.
Told you.
Yeah.
You
You said done. I thought you did it.
No, as in like done, like I will book it. But you said like, here's the link, I already booked it, Friday, 12 o'clock, boom, done.
Yeah.
I almost did it, but I was like, your schedule's very busy. Yeah.
Talk about, one of the things I know I talked to you about is your space has a lot of different therapists. You've got chiro, physio, RMT, you've got acupuncture, you've got, you name your services, right? You've got everything under the sun. And one of the things you struggle with, you've told me in the past, is the therapist's inability to refer out.
Yeah.
And talk about, I want to ask you two questions on this, right? I have one question, I have a follow-up. So first of all, how did you know at what point that, okay, I don't want to just give this person RMT treatment to make sure that they get the proper care, but I also need to refer out? Was that always there, or did you have to learn that?
I always had it. No matter what clinic I was at, it came inherently to me. So it's hard for me when therapists don't think outside of themselves. And yeah, I try to understand. I actually just had this conversation with one of our therapists, because she's so fabulous, but they put so much pressure on themselves to be the sole healer in a client's journey. And while they're so incredible what they're doing, they don't realize you're actually still slowing them down, because you're not pairing them with something that would complement that, and it would just pop it off,
Yeah. But do you think that's because they feel like, oh, if I refer it out, they might think I'm not the best person for this job, because they're thinking from their perspective and not the client's perspective?
Maybe. I also think they think from the lens of whatever discipline they're in. So let's just say it's osteopathy. They're thinking from an osteo lens. Okay, how could a client be helped? Because that's where their knowledge is looking at the body, if that makes sense. So they're not thinking of like, oh, wait, a physio would do this. So when I was having this conversation with therapists, I said, like, you're overcomplicating it. Just the team, who to trust, like, just choose one or two that you really trust and just make that your person that you share clients with. And that will help the client get better quicker, right?
Yeah.
Or do you think that it's also mindset? Maybe they think that, hey, you know what, you're taking away from what I am doing.
Yeah.
I'm seeing this client, once a week. But if I send it to an osteo,
lose that business. Yeah.
I'm gonna lose that business.
Yeah.
I have an idea. Maybe you do a cross referral program within your.
We're actually working on it. Yeah.
Yeah, even going back to admin, I remember when you were first training them on how to call leads and talk to them, right? It's not easy. to train somebody that's brand new that doesn't have that same sort of mindset of, because everything in sales, you need to be incentivized, right? You can't just be on an hourly basis expected to be a producing, right? Or closing deals. There needs to be some incentive in place. Is there an incentive system you have right now that
like we do, but it's not really working. So we're going to brainstorm in other ways. The thing is, when you go that route, I just worry that it can become ingenuine. So it's like, we want you to always be genuine. Only refer when you believe that person's going to help you. But they need almost like a push to even think that route, right? So it's a balance that I always like go back and forth about.
I mean, that's an interesting point. Like, because you don't want to say like, oh, you're overselling, or the person. I can see that. I think there needs to be a fine balance and maintain.
I think the solution's there. You know what the solution is? AI. AI is going to solve that problem. We already seeing in our industry, there's now AI ISAs, inside sales agents. I've seen these things are absolutely insane. First of all, there's no emotions. There's no inconsistencies. Always consistent with objection handling. And it sounds exactly like a human being. And if you're with the right model of AI in the healthcare space, they're able to diagnose and then refer out, and you wouldn't have a need for having a human there.
Interesting.
Yeah. What do you think of AI and where that's going?
I mean, there's so many things that have saved us time. One of the things I love is that for therapy, like especially virtual therapy, psychotherapy, I mean, when you're doing your session, we could have it now transcribed. So think of all the time it's saving your therapist.
Right.
And them being able to focus on direct care versus all the homework and all of that afterwards. So I think it's going to really improve the lives of our therapy team.
Okay, you want to talk about Fathom and how I introduced you to it?
I know. It's mind blown.
Right. And, it's funny, right? Because, we look at it, at least right now, we look at it as AI is like, not really replacing us. Right now, it's assisting. Right? Like, Ira's sitting in the other room, our assistant, and I think she uses this every single day.
She has an assistant, which is AI.
Yeah, she has an assistant, right? However, it just makes her more efficient in what she has to do. So I feel like, I don't think that's the takeover is happening anytime soon. But for now, it's just assisting us be more efficient.
Yeah. Do you think AI will replace virtual therapy at some point?
Virtual therapy, I think there is a risk for that. But there's such an emotional connection, and there's something different when you have a human there that a lot of people are lonely. A lot of people need somebody to actually connect with. So that part's missing. But yeah, if a person's like, I just had a fight with my girlfriend, what should I do? Then yes, you can get that. But the ones that really have complicated things, no, you can't replace human for that.
I mean, like if there's AI bots who in the future with the way we're accelerating in our trajectory of AI, I could see that happening.
Yeah, but you know what? Like, I truly feel that there's something about a human connection of actually talking to another person and not to a robot on the other end.
Yeah.
And having like premeditated answers or trying to almost like manipulate an answer.
Yeah.
So I don't know if and the only reason I say this is we take virtual therapy for health's sake, and I don't see that. If there was a bot sitting on the other end, like, answering questions, I'd be like, "What the fuck is going on?" So I don't know if that's the solution right now. Maybe the solution is we all get chipped, and then if you have problems, it just chips and talks to you. Like, I don't
Have you guys seen that show Severance?
No.
So I haven't seen. I think we saw one episode.
Yeah.
But it's I don't know why I'm talking about this, but it makes somehow related to AI. But it separates your brain from your work to your personal. So when you're at work, you have no recollection of your personal life, and when you're at home, you have no recollection of your work life. They're completely separate, and so it's like a. You
guys would die. You're like, what is that life? Even me, I would die. I'd be like,
because you're constantly thinking about work at home, and you're constantly thinking about home at work, and so it's a great show. You should watch it. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's scary actually.
It is.
So talking about AI, and it's kind of got me a question is like, how do you see it? Because that space. How do you see that whole wellness industry evolving? I guess over the next 5 to 10 years.
It's funny. I just did a podcast with a guy in the States, and he works with multidisciplinary clinics, and he was saying, which is kind of funny to me, that Canada is leading the way with healthcare, which to me, I'm always like, God, the States seems like we're always following the States. But he said in the States, it's mostly chiro, like it's Western practices and not really that holistic environment that For Health's Sake has. I do believe that we have the model that is going to be what the future is. And that is like people want the Eastern, Western, the mental, physical, and they want to know when to lean into one, when to lean into the other. And I do think there's a lot of people, maybe you guys are good examples, that would lean more to Western, but really Eastern's likely going to help you more. And then being in that environment and having that referral could keep you open to it and actually getting you somewhere. And then vice versa. You have people that are really into the energy stuff and want to stick with the Eastern vibe. But no, like you need physio, you need chiro, and that Western piece is really going to get them there. So yeah.
I feel like we didn't even talk about this. I'm glad you brought it up because your clinic that you really talk about is a blend of Eastern and Western, right? So how did that come about? That wasn't always there, was it?
No, and I actually thank Katie a lot for this one because I was very that Western mind. I went to U of T, I did kinesiology, I was in sports, and I had worked in mostly pain and sports clinics, and I was very much like, Western therapy is the best therapy. And then Katie is a little bit more, as you know, she's more into energy, and she's more into that Eastern side, and she was like, we just need to try it, we need to have them in. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm always a believer that you let the clients decide. Right. And I didn't have a lot of hope for it, to be honest. I was kind of like, we'll see what it says, and thinking like, I'm going to be right. And holy, they have a cult following. Eastern medicine has a cult following. It is incredible. Like our acupuncturist, Lisa, she moved away now, but she was so fabulous. And the people that went to her, it was no joke, like a cult. Like, and that's when I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a powerful form of therapy and a whole different clientele that we were not attracting before that are now coming through our doors.
Interesting.
Yeah. Do you think that there's more people now that are opening up to it, or do you think there was a time when it was more widely accepted and now it's shifting away?
No, I think people are becoming more and more open to it.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's normalized. It's like mental health. It's like there's no big deal if you do mental health anymore. It's like people always talk about what their therapist said. Before that used to be taboo.
Yeah. Yeah. So on that note, actually, mental health, I know when I was growing up, was always a taboo subject. If you went to a therapist, there's something wrong with you, you're crazy, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people still have some of those, biases, like, oh, if you're seeing a therapist. I remember the day I know that things have changed was when I was in an elevator. I was actually going up to my condo, and as soon as I'm in the elevator, this two girls walk in, or there's a girl and a guy, and they're openly and loudly talking about, so I saw my therapist this weekend, and I'm talking about this. And I'm like, that was my aha moment. I was like, holy shit, this is like a very widely accepted thing now. Yeah. And obviously I met you, and I completely opened up my eyes to this world, but I grew up with that sort of stigma.
Yeah.
Have you seen that changed in your own career?
Like years ago, like me and my girlfriends, when we're out for dinner, they talk about what their therapists say. And one of the jokes that we have is we're not going to date a guy that's never done therapy. And I remember when we first started dating, I don't know if you knew this, but I was testing you, and I was like, have you done therapy before? And you had. And I was like, check.
So had you said no, you would not been here?
Maybe not. It shows to me that you're able to self-reflect, that you want to grow, that you're not stuck in your ways. It's that you're open. It shows a lot about your personality. So yeah, it was a big check for me.
Yeah.
Then I found out you didn't do too much therapy, but you did a little bit.
Listen, I checked one box, and that's all we need. How many boxes?
It was a small check.
It was a small check.
A little bitty one.
Yeah. Talk about attracting your own tribe, and to me that really truly, if you boil it down to entrepreneurship and sales, it really means down to like you're niching down, right? Like that you have your own niche, and I think you kind of talked about, and so how important is having your own niche, within this space.
Yeah.
I mean, niche can be very powerful. Like you have clinics that are literally only for pelvic physiotherapy, and just because of that alone, these clinics are fully booked all the time for pelvic therapy. It already gives them more status. Right. Whether or not they actually are better than other clinics, there is something to that. And then, there's clinics that focus with kids, and then even though we have therapists that work with kids too, so there is a lot of power around niching, and it's something like we're actually not niched. Like we have a wide range of services and people that we service. It's working for us, but I do think that there's something to narrowing in. That's the word. Yeah.
Yeah. To niching down.
Yeah.
I want to switch gears very quickly on because how many employees do you have now?
Almost 40, maybe.
Wow.
Yeah.
40 employees. That includes therapists and support staff.
Yeah.
Right? What are the challenges being in a leadership position, dealing with your therapists and employees day to day? And how do you navigate that? I know I see it. I don't see all of it, but I see some of it.
Oh man, I don't even, like, managing is always a challenge, and
Right.
it doesn't matter what business you're in. It's just you need to learn how to work with people, and I think you need to be communicative. Like, so many people just are not good at communicating. So Katie and I are really good at that, and that's also why I don't think we've had many like issues, because whenever something happens, you just talk about it.
Yeah.
Women tend to be better at this. Like, guys don't really talk about this stuff, and that's when things can get built, right? So for us, yeah, we just keep it open and we just stay consistent. I've worked, and I'm sure you guys have too, worked with many companies where the bosses were just inconsistent. One day they're so nice, and the next they're just like so mad, and they keep you on edge, and it's just like not a healthy environment to be in. So that's something that there's so much happening every day, but when I'm in the clinic, nobody knows that that's happening in the background. I don't let any of our therapists know, like, shit's hitting the fan back here. Like, it's just, they just see me consistent, me positive, me supportive, and they don't need to know what's happening behind the scene.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, just on that topic, I know that as an entrepreneur that you handle a lot of shit, like you handle a lot of stress. So how do you keep yourself in check?
Like, working out is a huge one. It literally keeps me sane. Like, any stress I could have feels very different after a workout, as you guys know. I often ask Sid stuff, so I'll like, which I've talked to him about this. He doesn't ask me stuff.
I ask you stuff all the time. In fact, I observe and see what you're doing, and I take a lot away from what you do. So that, and hopefully that answers your question. That's my way of dodging
Very
it. But
sweet and short.
But
I observe.
I know. But I like it because you have a growth mindset, and just having that in home is so nice, because often if I come, because sometimes you just want to rant, right? And then you're like a Buddha half the time, and you're just like, think of it from their, like, and I do, but it's just like, it just allows me to be, always take accountability. Like, there's all these things. It's just like, no, I was in control of that. Like, I let that happen. I'm not going to make that happen again. Like,
yeah, we talked about something the other day, and we're talking about something that happened somewhere within the clinic at some stage, and then you said you talked to the newly hired coach that you talked about,
Yeah.
and then it wasn't you, it was somebody else in
Yeah.
that call that said, oh, my therapist is doing this, and then immediately the coach is like, well, that's your fault.
yeah.
Right? And it gets called out.
Yeah.
And then that's what made you realize he was a great coach,
Yeah.
because he's like, no, you need to take accountability. That's everything is
Yeah.
top down. Everything is top down. And I think that's
Yeah.
something that you have come to learn over the years too.
Yeah.
That how important has that been for you to change that mindset?
I mean, to be honest, I do think I had that mindset a lot. Like, I am somebody that's very self-reflecting. I'm always trying to improve, and it's not like I am the first to apologize if something goes wrong. Like, I've never been one of those personalities, right? But still, sometimes it's hard in moments where you're like you feel like you did everything right, but you obviously didn't. And so, yeah, it's a good reminder sometimes. And sometimes you just feel exhausted, and you're just, depleted.
So we've been going over 45 minutes, which doesn't
Wow,
feel like
really?
it. Yeah.
Crazy.
Do
I
you
mean,
wanna
I
ask-
do have one more
I have one
question.
more question too, but go ahead, Saurabh.
So you've been very successful in this space, in the health and wellness space. So one thing we didn't talk about actually that I want to bring it up is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a very women-run clinic.
Yeah.
Is that still?
Yes.
For the most part, that's still the case. Very women-run clinic, and you guys have found a huge amount of success in a very short period of time. I mean, 7 years is not a long time to be honest. To open up three clinics. So for somebody looking to get into the space, what advice would you give them?
To get into the healthcare space. Oh, your guys' questions are so open-ended. There's a million pieces of advice.
Yeah, like, I mean, what? So let's make it a little bit more specific. Like, if somebody's already working in a clinic and they truly feel that they're not serving their clients exactly how you felt.
Yeah.
Where should they start?
So one thing I kind of want to go a little back to, if you are new and like you just got out of university, do not go and open a clinic right away. So many people just think they can just do it all, and there needs to be something humble in you being like, no, I'm going to learn for a few years, and I'm going to try different spaces, and I'm going to take what I like and what I didn't like. And that's what we did. And you'll learn a lot from both of those angles. so I think that that's important, that sometimes people are just so fast to be like, I'm going to open a clinic and this was always my dream. So slow that down. But then it's just action. Like, so many people talk and they have ideas and they take so long to put it out there. Like Elon Musk, he'll put it out there in minutes. And it's like, that's why he's better. So you just got to move fast on things and not doubt. And then you just fix it later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point.
My question, and this is a final, do you have any more questions?
I think I'm done. I mean, I have a lot of questions, but we're kind of running out of time
You
here.
can call her afterwards. You have her number. Sticking to the theme of the show, what's one story of a deal that you closed that's very memorable?
It's so funny. Deal. It's so not our language.
Deal,
it's so
negotiation,
It's still a deal,
agreement.
Chloe.
Call it. You want to add a fluffy word to it? Add a fluffy word to it.
What's the biggest serving
Service thing that you've done.
Funny. No, I think I already talked about it though. It's our first franchise, and that's just because it's the grandness of it, right? Like our day to day is just referring. They're not deals. Like they're just you're helping people get help. But the franchise was really like, wow. Like it was just more reassuring. Like people want to partner with us. Like that's crazy. Like, and it's people that know us. So that's even more complimentary because it's like. So that was our biggest deal, I would say, was with Normand to start. Yeah.
That's awesome.
What's the next biggest deal?
Yes.
The one you haven't done it yet.
The next one is coming up.
It's coming up.
And what's the goal for health's sake? We're like, where do you want to take this?
We go back and forth, but if right now where I'm feeling is growing with people that really are like-minded and not just trying to grow quickly. It's quality over quantity. And I know that if we grow quickly, there's going to be a lot of headaches. And that's where people have nightmare stories about lawsuits and stuff with franchise. So to me, it's like, it's the people that we know, we trust, and that will represent us well. That's who I want to partner with and keep growing to more communities.
Great.
Awesome.
So how many clinics is that, Chloe?
10,
10, 20?
We'll
What's the
see.
goal?
There's got to be
There's
at
no
least a
end.
few in each province, and then go to the States.
Well, I do want to go to the States. That's a big goal.
Okay,
Let's go.
great. So where do people find you?
Yes.
So in terms of email or website or
Website, everything,
Website.
whatever you got.
Here's your sales pitch,
Yeah,
Chloe.
let's
Here's
go.
your service pitch.
for healthsake.ca. So you'll find both of our locations. We have one in Leslieville, one in downtown, and then one in Etobicoke. And
Instagram, and where can they find you?
Yeah.
for health's sake.
For health's sake.
For Health Sake and Instagram. Any TikTok? Do you guys for Health Sake have TikTok yet?
Isn't TikTok? No, TikTok's not banned anymore, is it?
No, it
No,
was
it's
only
not.
banned in the States, but now it's back. It's always been here.
We're not on
Or
that.
you could check them out on Google. I think
That's
they
right.
have
A gazillion reviews.
literally a gazillion reviews. I think I was checking for Health Sake Kingsway yesterday. I did go to the link, by the way, and I don't know what happened.
What
It was-
happened?
I think it was showing me some odd times at like 12, and then it said underneath "Do not book" or something like that. I'll show you after the podcast.
Yeah.
Book him in right now.
I will.
All right. Well, thanks for being here, and thanks for doing
Thanks
this.
for having me.
Yeah, that's
I'll
great.
see you at home.
Broswhoclose.
Broswhoclose.